All right. Good evening. Welcome to American Advocates. I'm really just going live because I don't want to miss 2 days in a row, but there are a few topics to discuss tonight that I saw were trending, making the news, etc. We're going to be covering a couple of things today. Tom Homan making some statements as the borders are when it comes to this Trump administration's immigration policy and new immigration stance, it seems, when it comes to Minnesota, Minneapolis, Operation Metro Surge. Tom Homan insistent upon the fact that this is not a surrender. Meanwhile, the numbers aren't really there, don't really point to much of anything. And on top of that, the narrative that they're putting out doesn't seem to match the action. So I'm going to cover that, as well as what was the other topic here I have written down? Yes, the partial government shutdown. This correlates with what we're seeing with Tom Homan. The borders are pulling out of Operation Metro Surge. These negotiations that apparently took place between President Donald Trump and Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, Mayor Jacob Frey, mayor of Minneapolis. We're in a government shutdown again as of this Saturday, partial government shutdown. So what are we doing here is the question. What are Republicans doing at this point? What is going on? And then finally, how this will all tie into the fact that an article I read today, Speaker Mike Johnson quickly losing power, quickly losing his congressional majority when it comes to Republicans. We're watching Republicans drop like flies, retiring early, dropping out of the chambers. One of them has a health problem now. The Republicans are actually at risk of losing their majority before we even hit the midterm elections at the end of this year. And so the Republican Party essentially is falling apart in its current state. They don't know how to wield power. They don't know what to do with it when they have it, and they seem to live to just give it up when they finally achieve it. That's what will be on the topic on the table for topics today. Starting with Tom Homan here, I took some notes on what Tom Homan said. He insists this whole Operation Metro Surge ending kind of situation here is a conclusion, he calls it. This is not surrender, they say. This is a conclusion, a job well done, you'll hear MAGA cheerleader channels say when it comes to the Trump administration. We did our job here in Minnesota and Minneapolis, this massive city, the Twin Cities. We did our job. We got them all. We're moving on. It's not true. In fact, Operation Metro Surge was a mediocre operation at best. They need to be doing a whole hell of a lot more than what they're doing in there, and the numbers show that rather than back and support the claims that MAGA cheerleader channels are making or that Tom Homan and this Trump administration are making. And so what they're actually calling this doesn't even match with the verbiage that they're using. They call it a conclusion, but then they go on and Tom Homan says this is not a surrender, but then they say, well, we're pulling out 700 ICE agents when about 2,000 total were there. Now all of a sudden it's, well, a total withdrawal will be taking place by the into this current week here. So they're totally withdrawing all agents from the state. This is a complete surrender. This is total capitulation from the Republican Party, all in response to a bunch of various different situations that happened, of course. But nevertheless, this is what surrender looks like. Especially disgraceful is the fact that Republicans have all the power right now. I harp on that so much on this channel because you look at what we have, and we have the executive, we have Congress still, even if it is being whittled away over time. We have the Senate, we have the Supreme Court. We have it all. And yet the Republicans, they cannot wield power to save their lives, literally. I see some chats coming in. By the way, please be sure to like the stream if you haven't already. It helps the stream perform well in the algorithm. Aqua Lantiquity says, it's a bitch move. Can't compromise. Integrity is gone. Agreed, 100%. Greg Sutton says, hi. Hello, Greg. Yeah, it is. It really is a bitch move. And the fact of the matter is, power is to be wielded, not negotiated. I've said this before now a couple of times over the past couple of days and weeks. Trump is the art of the deal businessman, and that comes in handy sometimes. But when it comes to wielding power, it certainly does not. He looks at power as something to be negotiated, when sometimes the fact of the matter is you got to lay the hammer down. And Trump just is not willing to do that, which is why he gets labeled a taco. It's why he chickens out. It's why he appears to cuck all the time to Democrats. It's because he views it as a successful negotiation. Anybody who's real out there, though, like myself, for instance, who notices this and understands power and understands how it should work, understands that there should have never been negotiations taking place. Barry says they took all the passports passport forms away, you can't get a passport. In what context are you discussing that, Barry? Anyways, a small team now, according to what Tom Homan announced here, a small team will maintain a presence to pick up the worst of the worst in Minnesota. And this is what the Trump administration labels as successful negotiations with Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Jacob Frey, mind you. I remember the original negotiations were absurd. It was basically, you're going to stop deporting people out of my state. You're going to stop with the mass deportations in my state. You're going to stop having Border Patrol and ICE agents in my state, reading license plates, etc. All these negotiations, it was about, no access to the prisons. All of this jazz is what they were negotiating originally. Stop the campaign of retribution Tim Walz wanted. All of this stuff. And originally it was for access to the prisons. And at the time, too, I even called that out and I said, this is bullshit. There shouldn't be a need for Trump to negotiate in this way when access to the prisons shouldn't be something that he has to request. He should be able to just go in. And if you have to, you invoke the Insurrection Act, you declare martial law in the whole city, right? You send in soldiers. If the prisons aren't letting you in to get illegal aliens out of their prisons, you kick the door downs with the military and ICE. And you go in and you take them. You take them from the state. And people cry, oh, it's state rights. Oh, no, it's not. States do not have the right to disobey federal laws. And immigration is a federal law. So on where we're at now, the Tom Homan border czar guy over here saying, well, we're going to have a total withdrawal. We're going to leave just a few agents behind in the state because thankfully, and Tom Homan even goes out of his way sickeningly to praise Democrat leaders, local and state Democrat leaders, including Homan and Mayor Frey. He praises them for being willing to work with them. This shouldn't be the situation that it is. You shouldn't be praising these people who borderline stirred up a color revolution to resist immigration and mass deportations. There shouldn't be a need to thank them for doing what's required of them. But he goes on to praise them, which he then flips on its head and says, this justifies the total withdrawal that will be pulling out all ICE agents from Minnesota now. The Democrats are working with us. Thank you, Democrats, for working with us. It's a federal law. There's no need to thank them for finally working with you and doing so in the bare minimum way. So the terms of conditions here for this Trump administration's surrender when it comes to this state in Minnesota here in Operation Metro Surge that's now ended, the terms and conditions are, well, now Tim Walz has agreed that if an illegal alien is arrested in his state and they're a violent, dangerous criminal, they will notify ICE and or Border Patrol of that so that they can come pick up that prisoner. This is how it's supposed to be to begin with. This is the most unsuccessful negotiation I think I've seen so far out of Trump, and I've seen some bad ones already. This one's terrible, though, because this was actually an Obama-era policy. This was already a standard for every state, according to the Obama administration. They set that up. It's how it should have always been. And once again, immigration is a federal law. States have their individual rights, yes, but they do not have the right to disobey federal laws. Not to mention, this is not a new federal law that you could argue is a corrupt and evil, tyrannical one that the big, bad, orange, evil fascist man put into place, because he didn't. It's been a federal law for decades, and that's facts. And so this really wasn't a negotiation at all. This was the Trump administration backing down and capitulating completely, all just so that they could get the Democrat leaders of Minnesota to agree to do something that they were already required to be doing. This is what's so disgraceful about that. I see we have a long-time chatter popping back up down here. I'll take a brief second to read that. Keystone Liberty, 1776. He says, Tom Homan and Kristi Noem need to go along with Pam Bondi. At this point, I agree. I was even going to say that, to be honest with you. I had that written down here. Tom Homan is similar to Trump. I was high on Tom Homan at first. Excuse me. I was pretty high on Tom Homan at first. He talks tough. He talks a good game. He seems to come in with a good plan. And I valued that at the beginning of this administration. And now I look at him and I just go, oh, you're just a more aggressive sounding Trump. You're all talk, no action. You don't actually get anything done. And now you're being used as a useful, tough-looking guy to make it seem like it's not a surrender. And worse yet, he's going along with it. And it shouldn't surprise me. You look back on the history of this, and this is just the Trump term 2 repeating the history of the Trump term 1 when it came to the Family Separations Act. We saw this already. AOC put up a big fuss. She got her airheaded ass out there, and she said, well, kids are being separated from their families during these deportations. And Tom Homan originally said, well, I don't give a shit. When I was a cop, I used to arrest fathers that were criminals, and if they had their kids in the car, guess what happened? They got separated from their kids. This is just how it works. You won't get separated if you're not a criminal. A good and fair point, mind you. But over time, Trump winds up putting in the word in his first term that the Republicans are going to get crushed. This was in 2017. Republicans are going to get crushed in the midterms. We got to take it easy. We got to stop separating the families. They ease up on their immigration reform policy. They ease up on the mass deportations. And then Republicans get annihilated in the midterms in Trump's first term. And in 2019, we experienced the worst year at the southern border when it comes to illegal immigrant crossing incidents that we had seen in 20 years almost. Is history repeating itself now as we see the Trump administration making the same mistakes all over again in Minnesota now, ending Operation Metro Surge, sending Greg Bovino, the commander at large of Border Patrol, out of the state, packing back home to his home city so that he can sit there and eventually come to the conclusion that he has to retire because he won't be used anymore? Is that what we're watching happen? Are Republicans about to get slaughtered in the midterms this year, regardless of Trump softening his stance once again on immigration policy? I think the answer to that is yes. I think they're making the same mistakes, and it is beyond frustrating. I'm going to take a look at a few chats here before I keep going on my monologue here. Aqualantiquity says, I doubt they even will, plus the arrest is already grounds for deportation. Agreed. You know what's grounds for deportation? Being in this country illegally. Like, it's that simple. It's so simple. And the fact of the matter is, this is popular amongst Americans. And at least it was. It's now losing popularity because the fact of the matter is twofold. One, they don't control the messaging good enough, the Republicans, so they allow it to get out of hand. This is all in response to Alex Preddy and Renee Good being shot dead, right? That's really what this is. And those aren't tragedies. Those are simply stupid white people who decided to betray their nation all in the sake of illegal or legal Somali foreign invaders in this country. Excuse me. And the fact of the matter is, they call this a tragedy. The Republicans give in to that too. Trump labels it a tragedy. He says, it's a tragedy. They weren't saints, but this is a tragedy. It's not a tragedy. These people are scum. They're scum with no lives. Renee Good was a wannabe poet who didn't she drive across town lines? Didn't she pull a Kyle Rittenhouse at the end of the day? Democrats were all over that one with Kyle Rittenhouse. Maybe it was Alex Preddy who did that or two. Maybe Alex Preddy and Renee Good both did that. I know at least one of them did. They crossed like state lines, county lines, drove for miles to get to their destination to impede law enforcement because that's what ICE is, federal law enforcement. And these are two white people that did this. These are two American white people that decided to betray their nation in order to try to impede federal law enforcement and stop the will of the people, Trump's popular mandate, and his mass deportations agenda. And then they face the consequences. Renee Good literally runs into an ICE agent and she tries to flee the scene. And Alex Preddy became a serial agitator. We now know of 2 or 3 different times where he was involved with ICE agents, agitating them, impeding their law enforcement ability. He had broken ribs from the ICE agents, not because they saw him and beat the shit out of him, but because he had been previously interfering with their operations, which is illegal. He kicked out their taillight. He spit on an ICE agent as a nurse who swore the Hippocratic Oath. He spit. He should have known better. That alone should have got his entire career canceled because that's a violation of your Hippocratic Oath. Spit can literally be harmful. Then he winds up ultimately being mag dumped in the back. Renee Good gets mag dumped in the face. And for some reason, these old-time Republicans want to pretend like this is a tragedy. And it's not. It's just not. Society is better off without these people. And now all of a sudden, this is George Floyd 2.0, the only difference being these were 2 white people. And so you don't see active, massive protests in the streets. All we're getting now are the Democrat officials instead calling for massive ICE agent reform. It's similar to George Floyd. We had the body cams coming because of George Floyd. Now the Democrats are lobbying for that, and the government is shut down because of it. You have, no Somalians protesting over the death of Renee Good or Alex Preddy. The Somalians don't give a shit about white people. They don't care about Americans. They're here for one reason: to steal from us, to take our opportunities, to live in better cities than anything they could build in their shithole countries, to defraud where they live and send the money back home. And that's exactly what they're doing. And you have idiots like Renee Good and Alex Preddy that take their side, which is treason to me. It's literally treason. And the way this nation used to punish treason is virtually no different than the way they ultimately got treated and the consequences they ultimately received for their actions, which is why I'm not bent out of shape about them at all. Nevertheless, that's why this is all happening. Midterms are upon us at the end of this year. The Trump administration is scared. They're getting phone calls, no doubt, from Republicans saying we're going to get slaughtered in the midterms. You have to soften your stance on this. And Trump, who was already basically 50% soft on it, Trump was already soft enough to say he wants 600,000 Chinese students in this country. He wants H-1Bs to continue. He wants to allow Indians in here. I just covered that whole episode 2 days ago on this channel on Friday. The H-1Bs and the Indians coming in, taking our jobs to make AI, which will take more of our jobs. Trump's already been soft on that. He was the one that went to ICE and everything and basically stated, take it easy on the farmers. They rely on illegal immigrants that they pay $3 an hour to pick crops for them. If they had to hire Americans and pay them an actual livable wage, our produce would go up too high. So take it easy on the farmers. Take it easy on the hotel industry, the service industry. Trump's never been as pro deportation as we all wanted to believe that he was, but we at least were going to get mass deportations everywhere else. Now those are canceled over 2 white people that are dead. 2 people justify that. And the fact of the matter is, here's the reality. When Trump took office, when he was sworn in, 60% or more, I believe at one point it was 64 to 65% of total Americans, including some Democrats, were in favor of deporting every single illegal immigrant out of this country. That number, of course, is now lower because the Trump administration deals with the optics of this so poorly that it's turned off a lot of people. But the other reason that it's turned off a lot of people is just because they truthfully don't have the stomach for what it's actually going to take to deport, very likely, 24 million illegal immigrants. And that is all to say, of course, we could never deport that many people in 4 years, but it would have been nice to see a schedule with this administration where Trump's deporting, say, 1.25 million a year, 5 million total in his 4 years as president. When you're deporting that amount of people, the room for a mistake to happen exponentially increases. We're dealing with millions of individual incidents here as a result of that agenda. It was never going to be an organized single file line of illegal immigrants telling on themselves, self-reporting, lining up outside of an ICE agency to turn themselves in to be deported. They're, of course, going to resist. Some of them are violent people, so they're going to resist violently. The Democrats use the mainstream media and their social media platforms to gaslight their low IQ voters to spark color revolutions. These color revolutions galvanize their voter base, who then go out and protest. The protest turns into riots. The riots create violence. The violence leads to death. The death galvanizes the base even more. The Democrat politicians focus on those deaths. They use those deaths as a way to attack the administration that's in power. This is called a color revolution, and it's what we've seen unfold over the past couple of months. The Democrats are winning despite being the minority in power all across the board as a result of this. But the bottom line is they don't have the stomach to do what is necessary to actually carry out the mass deportations. Because, yes, people are going to die. That's the fact of the matter when it comes to mass deportations, when you're talking about tens of millions of illegal immigrants. People die as it is on a day-to-day basis inside of regular law enforcement, let alone deporting millions of illegal immigrants from third world countries that are either desperate and don't want to go back and or violent because they're from a different country and they don't respect Americans or our laws or culture or society to begin with. And so to that, I say, what were people expecting? I don't know. But that's where we're at with that. And, this Operation Metro Surge, went on for I don't know how long, just a couple of weeks before it ultimately got shut down, before Trump chickened out. And during that time, in what was it, six weeks was it, from December to now, where they're withdrawing, total withdrawal this week. And during that time, 4,000 illegal immigrants were arrested. We don't even know if they're all being deported. 4,000 illegal immigrants, maybe as high as 5,500 I've seen. But the bottom line is that's a mediocre operation anyway. If the agenda truly is to deport as many people as possible, a good number would be roughly 1.25 million deportations per year under this administration to equal 5 million total by the time Trump is out of office. You would need to be deporting 3,424 illegal immigrants per day to achieve that goal. And that's truthfully what we need. So the fact that they only managed anywhere between 4,000 to 5,500 in 6 weeks on this operation also just goes to show you that they're really not going full throttle on mass deportations as it is. And now they're canceling even that. Not to be doomer pilled here, not to be black pilled, but this is reality. This is the reality for the Republican Party right now. Be sure to like the stream, by the way, if you haven't already, and if you're enjoying the content, and subscribe to American Advocates for more content like this, more raw truth. I voted for Trump. I'm socially and fiscally conservative, by the way. So don't think I'm a liberal on here ragging on this administration. I want Trump to succeed, but the fact of the matter is I also see the truth. I'm not part of the MAGA cultist party, okay? MAGA's a coalition, and it was a decent coalition at first. It's become a cult, and it's very clear at this point. Either you're a MAGA cultist or you're an aware conservative that understands just how much Trump is failing right now, the American people. I'm on that end of the spectrum right now. I'm telling you this right now. So, I'm going to move on to the government shutdown in just a second. I'll take a look at some chats, though. But this partial government shutdown, the Republican copium, real quickly, I'll say before I look at the chat, the Republican copium over Trump's capitulation here in Minnesota, his total surrender. I literally had this as a comment under one of my videos on this channel. They said, well, Trump's doing this because it won't give the Democrats the ability or excuse to shut down the government over the DHS ICE funding bill. That's why he's pulling out of Minnesota. He got the deportations done anyway for the most part, which is not true. There's no way only 4,000 deportations covers every illegal immigrant in the state of Minnesota. Give me a fucking break. But on top of that, they literally said, well, this now will make it so Democrats can't really justifiably shut down our government over the DHS ICE funding bill. So Trump's playing 5D chess. Look where we're at now. Look where we're at now. Government partially shut down again yesterday. And it's going to remain shut down because Congress is in recess until February 23rd. I'll take a look at some chats. With 28,000 self-deportation. Hold on. What did I miss from you, MH? Or are you agreeing with someone else? These self-deportations reportedly have hit over 2 million. And I might be inclined to believe that. But the fact of the matter is we can't just count on that being consistent. That's going to taper off quickly. All of the more morally scrupulous kind of upright illegal immigrants in this country that self-deported, we're going to do so quickly, and that number's going to taper off really quickly as a result. You're not going to continually see 2 million self-deportations per year, you know? So I'm inclined to agree or believe that number, but the actual raw number of deportations that happened last year is what ICE claims to be, or DHS website says is about 675,000. But then you have to subtract the turnarounds at the border because those count as deportations and they shouldn't. And so the actual number could be very much closer to 278,000 to maybe 400,000. And again, that is just drastically short of where this administration needs to be per year on mass deportations to really put a dent into illegal immigration. God bless our local, state, and federal law enforcement. I agree with that. Yep, God bless them. Sure, bud, but I'm sure your math is better than the best mathematicians in banking, says Nate the Gent. Thanks for noticing, and it is. I am the best mathematician of this generation. Aquil Antiquity says, we're not just talking GDP here. I'm missing some context here. Oh, okay. Wait, let me see. Cancerous Libra. The GDP number is bogus. It's skewed because they didn't factor in tariffs correctly. I'm not talking about GDP, Cancerous Libra. The GDP GDP, though, if you want to talk about why we can't actually have the mass deportations or why this administration won't go through with it, is because our GDP would tank in the short term, and that would be a disaster for Republicans. But to that, I say I don't give a fuck. Get every illegal immigrant out of this country. In the long run, it's better for Americans. And we need somebody in office that'll make that sacrifice play. That won't be Trump. Oh, man. Let me fast forward a little. Keystone Liberty says, if J.D. Vance is elected president, then America will have its first anchor baby first lady from India, since both of her parents were technically not citizens when she was born in the United States. Yeah, interesting thoughts. We'll see what happens. There's some interesting candidates rising up that give me a little bit of hope for America's political landscape. I just stumbled across a guy named James Fishback, and he's running in Florida, and I really like him. He has my vote. I love James Fishback. I want to see more people running like James Fishback. 31 years old, young, savage, wants to steer this country in the right way, wants to represent Americans correctly. Everything he says, I'm just like, yes, I agree so hard with this. Finally, somebody young, somebody smart, somebody with good energy, someone that wants to represent Republicans, put the future generations first. We need more of that. We need 49 other James Fishbacks to run for governors, like he is in California or in Florida. Sorry, he's running over Byron Donalds, of course, who he refers to as H1 Byron, because Byron Donalds supports H1B visas. You can't, if you're a Republican, I'm telling you this right now, the way a Republican is going to win midterms, or especially in 2028, whatever, you need to run on investigating and prosecuting Epstein co-conspirators and perpetrators. You need to run on placing young generations first rather than prioritizing boomers. You need to run on cost of living. Economic populism wins elections. You also need to run on eliminating corruption out of this government, prosecuting the deep state. But there has to be follow through, because Trump ran on all of this stuff and we're getting none of it. The fact of the matter is, it's going to need to be someone young. I'm not voting anymore. First of all, in the midterms this year, I'm either not voting. I like Fishback. I'm either not voting, though, for most Republicans, because they just don't deserve the vote. But I'm certainly not voting for anybody old. And from now on, if I see a 78-year-old Republican running, he's guaranteed not getting my vote. I'm done voting for some old, out-of-touch boomer who doesn't understand anything about what's happening in the modern day. We need young men who are conservative and strong to rise up in this country and take this country by its balls and lead it in the proper direction again. I'm so sick and tired of soft, out-of-touch boomers, cucked Republican politics. I'm sick of not feeling represented by my own party. So that's where I'm at with that. And if a Republican wants to win, those are what they need to run on. They need to run on mass deportations, immigration moratorium. Shut this shit down for 20 years. No more immigrants, legal or otherwise, in America for 20 years while we fix everything domestically. They need to run on all kinds of policy like that. And if they're not going to, they're not getting my vote, bottom line. I will not toe the party line anymore. I'm not a boomer. I don't give a shit. Let the worst fucking Democrat win, for all I give a shit. Maybe that'll help the Republican Party wake up. Maybe that's what they need, because they think they can count on our vote. What does the Republican... I'm going off on a longer rant than I meant to with this, but this disturbs my soul when I realize this. What does the Republican Party do to win elections? Do they do what liberals do? Where the liberals, they appeal to them. Liberals try to appeal to their base. They appeal to their base and appeal to their base's morality and ethics. What do Republicans do? Do they appeal to the everyday American that's part of their base? No. They assume somebody who looks like me and talks like me and believes what I do will vote for them no matter what. In the words of Trump himself several times this past, in fact, he has said things that he knew were going to be unpopular with MAGA, and he said, basically, well, MAGA will understand. They'll understand. They'll see, they'll understand, but we got to do it anyway. We have to. That's not a popular one, but we got to do it. MAGA will understand. No, the fuck we won't understand. And if you're going to sit there in your cabinet meetings and tell me if I care about the Epstein files, I'm not MAGA and you don't need my vote or want it, and if you're going to tell me you don't need or want my vote because I disagree with you on H-1B visas and I disagree with you on mass deportations and how you're not carrying them out, if you're going to say that, then I'm going to sit my ass home and let all the Republicans lose in the midterms, and then I'm going to watch Trump be impeached. And I'm going to watch the last 2 years of his presidency be an utter fucking failure because fuck you. Fuck you and fuck the Republican Party for treating me, as somebody that they don't need to care about, assuming incorrectly that I'll vote Republican no matter what. That's not the direction I'm going to go, and I'm not going to allow myself to be a cuck for my own party. You're going to give me what I want, and you're going to represent me, or you will not have my vote, and I will watch you lose with a smile on my fucking face. And we need more people with that thought process to force Republicans to realize what actually matters. Because it's not the minorities that they feel like they have to cater to that matters. If they can't win their voter base over, they have no party. Yet here they are, they want to appeal to moderate Democrats. Trump praises the Clintons. You know, like that's what they're all about right now. That's not my party. And until I see more people like James Fishback running and less people like Mitch McConnell, until I see more people like Thomas Massey running and less people like John Thune or Speaker Mike Johnson, we need less of that. And until I see that, I'm just not voting. And if you think I'm alone in this thought process, if you think I'm just some radical young guy, radical, who said, keep crying, little man? If you think I'm just a radical young little man in my car ranting about the Republican Party and sick of the Republican, and you think, no, well, he's just out of his mind. He doesn't represent. No, you're wrong. This is a movement that is growing amongst young men. We're done not being represented. In fact, in all honesty, men under the age of 45 should be the demographic that politicians care about the most, because men under 45 are literally the present and future of this country. Enough with the boomer appeal. Enough with the minority focus. Enough with the special interest groups and foreign lobbies. Enough with all of that jazz. Let's see if the Clintons will vote Republican to make sure Trump doesn't get impeached this year. Trump seems to love praising the Clintons lately. He seems to love talking about how it's a tragedy the Clintons are implicated in the Epstein files, and he feels bad because Bill always treated him good, and he called Hillary Clinton a smart lady. Let's see if they'll support him then, because I certainly won't be. What about women, says Olivia? Women in general need to shut the fuck up in this country. It's time for women to stop being so out there with their voices and their stupid opinions. It's time for men to take the lead like we were always supposed to. Women are always the reason for they're behind a lot of this shit. Society has deteriorated in general, and feminism is pretty much the root cause for a lot of it. Okay, you want to know why Christianity is so weak in this country? Look at feminism and how it breached the Protestant sect of Christianity. Even Catholicism has been breached by feminism. You want to know why children are more retarded than ever and they're softer than ever? Little boys are fat in school and they get bullied all the time, and then they cry, and then they want to transition to a girl when they're 18. Look at feminism. You won't see men pushing their children to be trans more than you see women pushing for that shit. You want to know why dating is so fucked up in this country? Why our birth rate has plummeted? Look at feminism. Look at children. Look at women who are willing to murder their child out of convenience in the womb. So what about women? What about them? Have you ever seen the difference in the map when it comes to the electoral map on what this country would look like if only women could vote? Every state is blue. We don't need that. We need every state red, and that's what the map would look like. Or I believe it was at least 48 out of 50 would be red if only men could vote. That's what we need. Men are conservative. Men are logical. In fact, you want to see what women get you? Look at this current Trump administration. We have Kristi Noem, who's possibly in a love affair with somebody in this administration. She's a PR disaster. She's soft. She puts on a costume to pretend it's her outfit, to pretend like she's doing work. You want Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi goes to a hearing and in true female fashion can't be held to account for the disastrous release of the Epstein files. Instead, deflects on every question, refuses to look at the Epstein victims in their eyes and apologize to them, and refuses to even acknowledge the fact that these Epstein victims reached out to the FBI and DOJ to be interviewed on their experience with Jeffrey Epstein to be admitted into evidence, and the DOJ refused to meet with any of them. When asked if she would turn around and look them in their eyes and apologize to them, she didn't even acknowledge them. In fact, when pressed on the disastrous release of the Epstein files and on the fact that she's defending the perpetrators of these files, she brought up the Dow Jones. She continually brought up Merrick Garland, the old attorney general for the Biden administration. It was like, anybody with experience with women understands this. It was like watching an argument with a girlfriend that any guy in the chat probably can understand, where they literally, you're making all the right points and they know it. And so they go, oh yeah, well, 3 years ago you said this and now you're saying that. And it doesn't, you're not right because of that. It's like, no, actually, you're the one that's going to take responsibility for this, whether you like it or not. But that's the whole thing, this administration. They touted this whole, we have more women in this cabinet than ever. Yeah, look where it's getting us. Nowhere. It's time for men to take charge again, okay? So yeah, that's where I'm at with women. LOL. Greg Sutton, are you genuinely denying that Trump has mentioned that all in the files? Trump's mentioned a ton in the files, but he's not criminally implicated in any of them. I subscribed, says Calro Law 340. So thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, be sure to like the stream if you haven't already and subscribe to American Advocates for more content like that. Talk, says Dr. Gregory. Did your woman cheat on you? No, she can't cheat on me. My woman is an AI sex robot from Elon Musk. There is no cheating when it comes to that. This is why they make Prozac. Yeah, well, isn't Prozac what women take? They're lonelier than ever. They're pick-me women, says Olivia. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's not even to hate on women. It's just the fact of the matter is what we have and what we've gotten as a result of feminism is a massive problem. Women themselves, individual women in this country aren't all necessarily the issue. It's this collective movement of feminism, this collective thought of, women are never wrong. Don't tell a woman no. It's like, no, women need to shut up. They need to stop talking so much. We need to start telling women no a whole hell of a lot more. Women are wrong all the time. In fact, they're stupid half the time. Let's just be real. And they feel like they have to put their opinion out there when sometimes it would be better if they didn't. Like, the whole point of women is to not hear what their political stances are on stuff, in all honesty. It's nicer when I date, I don't like talking politics with a girl. It's like women are like the escape from that reality. But now you have more social media women out there than ever that are talking politics. It's like, ugh, God. And they don't even the conservative ones are still feminist. If they're taking a prominent position like being their own boss and owning a media company, like a Laura Loomer or something, like there's another train wreck for you. And it's like, just look what happens when these women are all over social media and they get famous and successful. Sarah Stock, or whatever her name is, the trad wife, the virgin trad wife. It turns out she had been cheating on her husband before she even married him. It's like, it's always a disaster. It's just always a disaster. The nuclear family was the model that we should have never gotten away from. Like, I grew up with a stay-at-home mom because my dad worked a good job, and that was how it was. That's the best circumstance. It really is. So we need to get back to that. All right, this government shutdown. Let me get back on track. A little bit too much ranting. Erica Kirk, great example. Yes, Erica Kirk. They do the Charlie Kirk memorial thing, and it's like that was nice. Even then, I started feeling a little weird. The fireworks were a bit much. But if they would have left it alone, right? It's like, nice memorial for Charlie. Fireworks were a bit much. Like, it did look like she was doing a little bit of a WWE entrance there. But like the words were powerful, the emotions were high. He had just died. It was like nice memorial. But no, she has to go on. She has to go on. Now she's wearing tight leather pants. She's giving JD Vance a suspicious hug. She's throwing caps out to the audience with a smile on her face. And then 2 minutes later, not even crying, but dampening fake tears onto a tissue. Her makeup never runs, but she has the tissue right there always. Her number one supporting actor, the dry tissue. And it's a disaster. It's a PR disaster. It really is. Anyways, back on track, because that was quite a side tangent. Back on track. This whole capitulation with Tom Homan and the Trump administration in Minnesota, complete withdrawal. And now, like I stated earlier a few minutes ago here, the Republican cope over all of this was, well, Trump is playing 5D chess. He's manipulating the Democrats to force them into a position where they can't shut down the government over the DHS ICE funding bill because he's going to pull all the ICE agents out of Minnesota. Look where we're at. They're all getting pulled out this week, all of them, except for a handful that will remain there to scoop up any illegal alien that commits a violent crime, which was already an Obama administration era policy that shouldn't have needed to be negotiated, yet here we are, right? So they're all leaving. Now the government shut down yesterday. Congress is in a recession until February 23rd. Speaker Mike Johnson assured everybody. He said, I think the Democrats will play along here. The whole time I've been going live on this channel the whole time saying, I don't know what's Mike Johnson smoking. The Democrats aren't going to play along. They have no reason to play along. It's only in their best interest to shut down the government. It makes it look like they're fighting Trump. It stalls the agenda even more. Not that Trump's even actually all that serious about mass deportations, but it's like the Democrats played this beautifully. They're winning. They convinced Mike Johnson and the Republicans to segment out the DHS ICE funding bill and the SAVE Act for voter ID, for voter ID for registration and voting. They said, we'll vote, we'll keep the government mostly funded if you pull those two out. The Republicans, who have complete control, mind you, of Congress, the Senate, and the executive, they said, okay, and they agreed. And then the Republican copium comments on my videos. They said, you just don't understand chess. By the way, I have at any point in time a 1600 to an 1800 ELO score. I'm actually a pretty good chess player. I'm not great. I'm not at a master level. I didn't start young enough, but I'm actually a good chess player. I actually identify with and understand strategy pretty fucking good, if I do say so myself. And so the Republican copium was, you just don't understand. Trump's playing 5D chess and you can't see it. Once he does this, they can't shut down the government. They have no excuse. It's like, are you fucking brain dead? They're going to not only get their way, not only will Trump capitulate and withdraw all forces from Minnesota and no mass deportations will happen, but they're going to shut down government anyway. I was right. Go figure. Go figure. The Democrats are democrating. This is what they do. And so, this is where we're at with this government shutdown. It's honestly ridiculous because the Democrats have galvanized their voter base over this. The perception of this is a disaster. Not just because Trump's more unpopular with his voter base now. He's down to 34% approval rating, according to some polls, liberally tainted ones. But on top of that, the Democrats feel like they're winning. Their base is galvanized. Their base is now galvanized. They literally, according to Democrat perception, this is what they're seeing for sure. We protested after Alex Preddy and Renee Good died, and we demanded that ICE leave, and they surrendered. They're going to keep going. Now, any state this administration perhaps decides to have the balls to enter into to put together another Metro Surge version where they look for mass deportations, will experience the same thing because they're going to be targeting Democrat states, and the Democrat voter bases will be funded by Soros, egged on by their own Democrat officials and encouraged, like Tim Walz did, and they're going to go out into the streets and do the same thing. And again, we'll see the same cycle repeat. People will die. The protests will turn to riots. The riots will lead to violence. The violence will lead to death. The death will create the color revolution that the Democrat politicians utilize to then basically manipulate the party in power, which is the Trump administration, into once again bending the knee to them when they don't even have the power. This is a cycle that will be rinsed and repeated until the end of this year when midterms come and Republicans lose. And then the Democrats have control and everything stops. And that's just where we're at with that. The Democrats are demanding, they're refusing to allow this partial shutdown to end until Republicans now surrender on these following terms. I wrote them down. Democrats are demanding oversight changes to ICE operations and the code of conduct for ICE. And so what they're demanding, I have it written down right here. Congress is recessed again until the 23rd, and during that time, TSA, FEMA, the Coast Guard, the Secret Service, ICE, and Border Patrol are all shut down and they're all affected essentially. And what they're demanding, these Democrats, they're demanding body cameras, that they're demanding that ICE agents must show ID, and they're demanding that ICE agents remove their masks. Now, tough guy Tom Homan, who literally said this is not a surrender, we're just totally withdrawing from the state. Tom Homan, tough guy over here, he's now talking about how he's rejecting all of their demands. He doesn't want body cams, ID to have to be showed, or unmasking of ICE agents. But you have some Republicans that are willing to play ball with them, and they're openly stating as much. Markwayne Mullin, a Republican, said, and some other Republicans, they agree with body cameras, for instance. And they said, we agree with the body cameras, but not the IDs and not the unmasking. And this is for a reason, by the way. Well, first of all, I want to say this is why it's George Floyd 2.0. It's George Floyd, but without the aggressive rioting over from Somalians, for instance. We're not seeing that in the reverse effect. George Floyd was killed, and all of a sudden you saw all these people protesting over it. Well, now you have Alex Pretty and Renee Good killed. You don't see Somalians protesting, like I stated, because Somalians don't give a shit about Americans or white people at all. They're literally just here to plunder our country. But the protest came from other stupid white liberals out there who said this is unacceptable. A few black people as well, right? And now it's body cameras for ICE. It makes me sick, but fine, body cameras, okay. In a lot of cases, that'll just showcase how violent a lot of these illegal alien scum really gets. So I guess I could be okay with that. But the reason why you can't do the IDs or the unmasking is because that compromises their identity. And the Liberal Party is so radicalized and so disgusting that this is all intentional. Chuck Schumer is literally stating, I don't understand why it can't just be like state and local law enforcement. That's how this should be carried out. The reason why it can't be carried out that way is because the illegal aliens are desperate enough to do anything possible to stay here. On top of that, the liberal, sick, radical voter base is so gross that they want to know the identity of the ICE agents so that they can hunt them down and possibly kill them. There's already credible threats against ICE agents that have been occurring all year long. We've had some cases where there's been bounties put on some of the ICE agents, some of the leaders in ICE whose identity couldn't be hidden. They had bounties put on them. That is completely unacceptable. And that's why they can't unmask or be forced to show ID. And that's just the fact of the matter. There better not be any negotiating when it comes to either of those two. As a result of this, though, with the Republicans only seeming to be willing to compromise when it comes to the body cameras and not the unmasking or IDs being presented, Democrats have walked away from the talks now. And so the Democrats are essentially shutting down the government over this, and now they're walking away. Congress is in recession anyway till the 23rd, but the Democrats are walking away from the talks. And so, of course, you have Markwayne Mullin willing to compromise on the body cams. He criticizes Chuck Schumer and Dems for walking away from talks, though. But again, if you're viewing it from just a strategical standpoint, of course they walked away from talks. They're holding all of the power that they shouldn't even have. And the reason why they shouldn't have this is because the answer to this is actually simple. And the simple answer is nuke the fucking filibuster. You pass this shit up, Senate, you nuke the filibuster in Senate, they finalize it, it gets sent back, the Democrats cry and scream and complain, but all they can do is just that. They can't do anything else. All of a sudden, you don't need the 60 votes. And that's what should have been that should have happened during the first government shutdown. But this is the problem with the Republicans. Their power, once they achieve, the Republicans don't know how to wield power. They're like the dog chasing cars. It's only about the chase to get the car. It's never actually about catching the car, because if a dog ever caught a car, it wouldn't know what to do with it. And so when the Republicans have power finally, they don't know what to do. And this is what that looks like. They don't wield the power effectively. They surrender and capitulate because they're spineless cucks. They're little bitches. and they don't represent Americans. They don't represent their voter base anymore. They're more focused on foreign interests and lobbies and special interest groups. They're more focused on making sure that they remain popular with moderate Democrats as opposed to their own voter base. Old school Republicans are cucked enough to genuinely believe for some reason that it's the Democrats that have the moral high ground. And the fact of the matter is that's what influences all of their decisions. It's all appearance-based politics. And the Republicans don't want the Democrats to be able to be in a position where the Democrats call them bad or amoral or evil. But the fact of the matter is that's all false. It's all a false perception. Democrats don't have any moral high ground. They're the party of abortions. They're the party of transgender for teenagers. They're the party of men crushing women in their own sports. They're the party of dystopian society via COVID regulations. The Democrats literally were outraged at ICE going around and wanting to see IDs and wanting to check papers for immigration. But just 5 years ago, Democrats were all in favor of vaccine ID identification in order to enter stores because COVID was the worst thing we ever saw. And Democrats, if you ask them, they'll tell you it's a miracle that someone like me is even alive right now. Me, of course, who didn't wear a mask at all. I didn't put on a fucking face diaper, let alone two of them. I'm sure right now there's a Democrat in my chat wearing two masks right now, in a room by himself or herself, wearing two masks, watching this still, and saying, this guy's a fucking moron. Wow, what a bigot. You know, good luck breathing through those two masks. Maybe if you had more oxygen coming into your brain, you wouldn't be so fucking stupid. But I never wore that shit. I'm pure-blooded. I never took any of that crap in my body. And I sure as hell was never going to participate with a vaccine passport ID. But the Democrats are outraged over ICE asking for papers to make sure people are in this country legally. So who has the moral high ground here? Not the Democrats, but these soft Republicans currently in office. They treat the Democrats as if they do. And so all of their actions are basically dictated off of that notion. And it's a false notion. And I'm telling you right now, you get somebody like James Fishback, I'm telling you, check him out. If you don't live in Florida, check out James Fishback in Florida. You'll like what you see if you're a conservative like I am, a socially, fiscally conservative, younger person. You'll like James Fishback. We need a lot more of that. And the fact of the matter is, what's actually happening is the generation gap is creating this divide in our politics right now. MAGA's fracturing, and it's fracturing in large part because of a generational divide. Men under 45 are done with this low testosterone, bitch-made bullshit out of this Republican cucked party. But here they are giving in to the Democrats every single need and all of their whims. It's absolutely pathetic. And as a result of that, the Republicans' power is already shrinking. And that's the final point that I'm going to discuss on this stream right here. I'll take a look at some chats before I move on to that, though. Keystone Liberty 1776 says, when is Trump going to Venezuela? Soon, actually. I did see that. That's the one good, personally, I know not every Republican agrees with this, but personally, that is one of the good things that this Trump administration did. I love the fact that we took Venezuela. I like the Monroe Doctrine. I think we should absorb Cuba as well. Just absorb them. Just put the American flag there and say, you're ours, bitch. You're ours. We're taking everything here. This is our country. Now, we should just do that in the of America in general. We should just take everything in there. It's like, that's ours, honestly. Like, why don't we, to be honest with you, it's like, why don't we even just take Mexico? I mean, in all honesty. But Venezuela, for sure, I love that. Let's just take all of their oil. China doesn't get it now. It's a massive positive to me. But, you know, even with that stuff, you know, you have Trump kind of tacoing out on Greenland a bit. We got a slightly better deal in Greenland. We can now expand military bases up there without calling Denmark to ask for permission first. So it's semi-sovereignty. But really, we should be owning Greenland outright. We need Greenland, and we should just have it. And the same should be for Venezuela, Cuba, you know, etc. Like, let's just take all of that. Let's cleanse that area too. You know, like Haiti, disgusting. So we need to just absorb that region and then just like apply our morality down there. It's other, because it's poverty, and not in a way where they gain statehood, you know, not in a way where they gain statehood, but just, you know, just absorb it. That's how I view that. You can't get rid of the filibuster. You can nuke the filibuster, Pat Jagger. Yes, you can. You can nuke it. The Democrats will do it. When they regain control, they will do it. The Democrats will not allow Republicans to keep that filibuster for a 60 vote count. They won't do it. So yeah, $38 billion in new funding on the way for DHS, along with more detention center hold 98. I saw the 98,000 detention centers, yes, but is that just more optics? Those detention centers? That's what I wonder, because this administration they're not doing mass deportations anymore. There's no way to believe that they are. Trump has softened his stance so much, and I just spent the better half of 45 minutes explaining that. So it's not about mass deportations. The detention centers, I don't know what those are about yet. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, the appearances, they're going to be for mass deportations, but I'm just not convinced at all that we're getting mass deportations anymore. The narrative has changed so much. And I don't think Trump's going to continue to sneakily do mass deportations either. Most detainees are legal. For what? Inflation is at 2.4%, down 9.1%. Thank you, Trump. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. But yes, it is at 2.4%. You have to remember, inflation at 2.4% doesn't mean, that just means that we're not speeding down the highway towards, super high prices and a lower dollar value as quickly. What you also want to correlate that with is real wage growth, which is not matching it still. You also want to correlate stuff like that with the housing market and cost of living crisis that we're in. Very angry, says Gary the Snail. Yes, I am angry. You sit in a car and rant about everything you don't like. You are a moron. Yeah, well, guess what, CKY? You watch me on your phone sit in a car and rant about everything I don't like. So who's the bigger moron? The moron who's ranting or the moron who watches them? A man yelling in his car about how everything is Democrats' fault when they haven't been in charge for over a year. Does any of this sound like it's Democrats' fault to you, Sniper Boom? Is that the messaging that you're getting? You may want to check your thermostat and see if it's higher than your IQ currently. I'm literally complaining about Republicans, you cucked bitch. People who took the jab are having mental issues. People who took the jab are having a lot of issues. There's going to be those commercials in 10, 15 years from now. If you took the COVID jab in 2022, you may be eligible for a class action lawsuit. But the fact is, our government actually has already done as much as it can to make sure that Pfizer can't be sued. They knew this was going to be a problem. So the people who took the jab, they're going to have ridiculous, weird blood clots that are hemorrhaging in their legs and causing their hearts to stop. They're going to try to sue, and then they're going to find out they can't. And that's going to be even funnier for me. The jab was the mark of the beast. Oh, come on now. No, it wasn't. The jab, if you want to say it was comparable, sure. It was a good litmus test for society, that's for sure, right? Anywhere between 3/4 to even up to 85% of people in America took at least one of the shots, right? And so most people would absolutely fold to that in an instant. And that's really what was revealing about that. I'm proud to be one of the 15%ers. You can't fool me. I'm too strong-willed. My balls are just a little too big. Unlike for most Americans, it seems. People like this get to vote. Let that sink in. Who are you? Who are you, Blue Nico? I vote. Yeah, by the way, if you saw who I voted for or who I want to vote for, if you actually knew what I wanted, you'd be even more terrified. And that makes me happy. What a violent psyche you have, says Olivia. Thank you. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Let's just colonize everything. Yeah. I mean, if it's in the Western Hemisphere, yeah, why not? Why shouldn't we? You're Horse Major. You're the same one that would defend Dearborn, Michigan, though, wouldn't you? 52% Muslim. It's becoming a Muslim colony. I'm sure for you that's okay with your bullshit ass white guilt self, right? How dare we as Americans tell Muslims that they can't come here and colonize our cities? We deserve to be conquered by Muslims or the Chinese or both, don't we, horse major, you fucking little cuck, right? So yeah, you're mad about me talking about wanting to absorb Cuba and how we need to own Greenland for national defense? Give me a fucking break, you spineless, pathetic bitch. Regressive, man. It's called being a reactionary, Olivia. Look it up. You could build bases since 1950s. Well, exactly, UNGOC. That's the thing. It's only a slightly better deal that we have with Denmark. The original deal was in 1951 or 53, and it was a deal where we could build bases up there. We just had to ask Denmark's permission first. The new deal is now we don't have to ask. Like, okay, a 10% better deal, thanks. We should just own Greenland. Hey, bud, somebody already owns it. That's debatable, actually. Does Denmark really own Greenland? And if so, why? And why, more importantly, how do they own it and why do they own it? That's what you should actually ask yourself. But you won't, and you also don't really understand history, honestly, if you're making such a stupid statement. Keystone Liberty says Putin set Cuba oil now that Cuba can't get oil from Venezuela. Yeah, exactly. That's why we should take Cuba as well. We need to own our Western Hemisphere, which is in accordance with the Monroe Doctrine. It's what the founders of this country wanted for us to begin with, for the most part. A lot of our founders, a lot of our heritage Americans, they wrote the Monroe Doctrine. They participated in the Monroe Doctrine. They were in our government in the 1800s, and they determined that. They said, there's the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. We're separated from the old world. We're separated from everything going on there. We should not get too involved over there. We should focus on the West. The Western Hemisphere is ours. We should focus on that. And America kept expanding. We wound up purchasing all of the West, all of that jazz. We conquered the 13. We did all this jazz with America. That was their original intent for us. Not to be so intertwined with foreign wars over in the Middle East and, oh my God, Russia attacked Ukraine again. Oh, poor Ukraine, the corrupt, disgusting country Ukraine. Let's send billions in aid to those countries. Let's focus on Thailand and Cambodia. No, that's not the original intent. And that's why I love the Monroe Doctrine. And so when it comes to Cuba, yeah, just take it. Because Russia and China are meddling in our affairs, and they're using those countries to do so. China was using Venezuela as a proxy point. And we stopped that. And that's why I love what Trump did with that. He is showing how ignorant he can be, says Richard Cook. Thanks. You know what's great, Richard Cook? Your real constructive argument against that, your stated argument where you really are trying to attempt to really argue with my rationality here and make some good counterpoints, very obvious. I can tell you're a very smart person, Richard Cook. Very smart. I wouldn't be surprised, in fact, if you go live on YouTube and just put on TED Talk levels of expertise in this area, Richard Cook. You sound so smart. You're probably Albert Einstein of politics. Amazing. Why is it America's right to just take other people's countries away because we want what they have? Yeah, yoga, Danny. Yeah, that's actually that's how it works. Believe it or not, the world has actually always worked that way. Have you ever read a history book? You speak like a true colonizer. Thank you so much. That's very sweet of you. Your voice isn't worthy of being heard. Okay, well, here you are watching. I'm a colonizer, says Bone 42,000. Horse Major says, let's say the government takes the whole world. They ain't giving you a cent, dummy. It's not about what I get monetarily out of it. If you don't understand the importance of Greenland, then you're just stupid, and I'm not here to cast my pearl to swine. All right, I'm going to get back on point here. I like you. You're a man after my own heart, says APEC 5359. Thank you. Appreciate that. Be sure to like the stream if you haven't already and subscribe to American Advocates for more. All right. Greenland is actually pretty important, says Bunger. It's very important for our defense. The Golden Dome, opening up sea routes as the polar ice caps melt more, and for the rare earth minerals. Finally, back on point here from the final thing I wanted to state. The complete capitulation up in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Tom Homan, ICE, all withdrawing from Minnesota this week, giving up essentially on mass deportations. Combine that with the fact that, like I've been covering here, There's a now partial government shutdown. The Democrats are running the show from underneath this administration, which has all the power. Now the Republicans are losing their majority, and they're actually at risk of losing their majority before the midterms. I have this written down right here, in fact. It's already shrinking before midterms. They started with a decent-sized majority this time last year, but several Republicans have already stepped down. We saw Marjorie Taylor Greene do this on January 5th, actually. Several of them have stepped down or are retiring, and they now only have, I believe, a 4-point lead. And amongst that lead, by the way, you have people that dissent from the party already, like Thomas Massey and what's his name, Rand Paul, just to name a few. In some cases, we've seen as many as 6 Republicans actually dissent from this administration and vote against the interest in Trump's agenda. And in that instance where they did that, I'll cover that in a second. I actually disagree with the 6 Republicans that did that, but it just goes to show you that the Republicans are actually at jeopardy right now. You have this weak House leader, this weak speaker, Mike Johnson, right? He's just a follower, and in some ways that's good. Because if you have a president with a great agenda and you have a person like Mike Johnson there to implement that and help implement that and create legislation for that, well, then it works very well. But what we're actually getting is Mike Johnson loves vacations, and Mike Johnson has no spine. And Mike Johnson, for some reason, seems to be the kind of Republican that believes Democrats have moral superiority over Republicans. So we need to do everything like with a concern of how Democrats will perceive it. This is one of the laziest Congresses we've had in years. They've gotten so little done. They've gone on like 8 vacations already in the past year. They're currently in recess now, and the government's partially shut down. And then on top of that, they're losing their majority lead. So Mike Johnson had a cozy majority lead this time last year. Now it's only +4, and a lot of Republicans are also threatening to step down, leave the chamber, retire. One of them is sick. I wrote down his name here. Let me find it. Yeah, Neil Dunn. Neil Dunn has health issues, and he might actually have to leave due to health. And if that happens, the majority could be cut down to 1. It could be +1. And so the Republicans are in a terrible spot right now. Absolutely ridiculous. 30 total Republicans, 30, have announced that they're either leaving the chamber or retiring. And 5 of those Republicans are in competitive districts where a Democrat could wind up taking their spot. And the Democrats are just aggressive. They're taking back the power. They're manipulating the system so well as it is. Now you have Republicans, and they've already, like, for instance, the Democrats, they already forced a vote. We saw this last year. We saw this last year when Republicans had an even bigger majority, and they still forced that vote on healthcare last year. They forced a vote on Trump tariffs, and they're doing it again this week. And in that particular vote, that's where we saw 6 Republicans side with the Democrats. And with such a narrow lead as it is, if 6 Republicans side with Democrats, that's a +2 Democrat favorability right there. Now, the fact of the matter is, when it comes to tariffs, it's all performative. This is what grosses me out to this day about politics in this country. That's all performative because everyone knows if that bill reaches Trump's desk, he's going to veto it. The Trump tariffs are crucial to Trump's agenda. And I actually support the tariffs, and I always have. I think overall, they're good policy. The tariffs are something that both parties for years recognized were necessary. Both parties for years have talked about how we needed trade reform, geopolitical trade reform. The Democrats were talking like this in the 90s. It's just now that Trump is actually implementing it, they're of course critical of it. But you go back to Nancy Pelosi in 1994, and she sounds like Trump does today. Trump hasn't always implemented the tariffs perfectly, but the fact of the matter is the tariffs are good and they should stay, and I love the tariffs. And so he would veto that bill, but nevertheless, that's what they're pushing for because it's performative. And then in midterms, they get to say that they tried to pass this bill, and that's the excuse, one of the several excuses they'll have that they'll use to encourage more people to vote Democrat in the upcoming midterms. Also, they forced the surrender that we just saw with the mass deportations. This administration has lost its balls and has surrendered on the deportations. And that's all with a Democrat minority. They're a minority party. So the moral of the story is the Republicans, like I stated at the beginning of the stream, they don't know how to wield the power. And when they actually, God forbid, get the power, they drop the ball every time. They give it up. It seems like they are eagerly giving up power. It seems like they're all too happy to lose to Democrats. And so they give it up. And then worse yet, while they have this waning power, they don't even represent us. If you look like I do and you're an American, they're not even thinking about you. Not even at all. And so that's the moral of the story here. And now their messaging is essentially going to be just as bad, but on the reverse end of the spectrum of the Democrats' messaging with Kamala Harris. Up for these midterms, what's the Republican messaging? Is the Republican messaging, please vote for us in midterms because we're finally going to address your cost of living and affordability crisis. We're going to address the housing market issues. We're going to prioritize the young generations of this country so that more millennials can own homes and catch up to the pace that the boomers had when it came to boomers owning homes in their 30s? Is it going to be, we want to focus on Gen Z men in this country and prioritizing them? We recognize just how distraught they are. So we want to fix the rent issues. We want to make a life more affordable. We want to protect American jobs. So vote for us in midterms? No, it's none of that. Their messaging is please vote for us in midterms. Otherwise, Donald Trump will be impeached. That's all they have. And that's no better than when Kamala was running and the messaging was vote for Kamala because otherwise Donald Trump will win. And look what happened there. And so do you really think Republicans are going to win midterms this year with that kind of messaging? They're not even telling you why to vote for Trump. All they're telling you is vote for Trump, otherwise, or vote Republican in midterms, otherwise Trump will get impeached. It is so bullshit. And that's where we're at with that. That's the bottom line. Billionaires don't give a shit. That is for sure. And now Trump's approval rating, according to some polls, hit 34%. So, just again, now this is a liberal-leaning poll, this Trump approval rating at 34%. But nevertheless, it's not getting better. All of Trump's campaign promises are now still more popular than he is currently as a president. And a lot of what I was looking at that poll where he was at 34% approval has to do with the cost of living crisis. I'll take a look at some chats here before I wrap up this stream. All politicians don't care about the peasants. Not all. It's just the fact of the matter is there's too many of them that don't. Too many of them have been bought out by foreign interest groups, special interest groups, foreign lobbyists. They've been bought out by big pharma. They've been bought out by big tech, big corporations, and that's the issue. And when people say it's two wings on the same bird, that's why. There's too much big money in our politics. It needs to go back to grassroots. Bottom line is Trump ain't making it to 2028. No, I think that's still pretty silly to view it that way. I think Trump will still be president in 2028, but he'll go through impeachment proceeding. He'll go through an impeachment trial. I think that's very likely. And then he'll be the third time impeached president. I think that'll be a record. Same poll that said Hillary was going to win by 11 points. It might be Daniel Napper, but the fact of the matter is even the right-wing leaning polls still have his approval rating low. It's lowering. Rasmussen reports had him down to 41, which was the worst he was at since 2017, according to the right slanted polls. Trump is bringing down pharma prices. How do you like that? That I like. Yeah, I like what he did when it came to NATO and our European allies because they've been taking advantage of us when it comes to big pharma as well, right? The reason why the Europeans always go on social media and they talk about how capitalism sucks and socialism's great to live like us is because our capitalist society funds their socialism. It turns out RFK Jr. and under this Trump administration exposed the fact that they had cheaper medicine costs there because of America. We were subsidizing it for them. Our military might is what allowed NATO to, despite the agreement of NATO, where they were supposed to be actively funding their defense, they skipped out on it. And weak politicians over the years who ran America, including every president since the signing of NATO all the way to modern day, has let them get away with it. Trump's actually one of the few that cracked down on it the most. But they decided, if America's got our backs with military, we don't need to fund our defense anymore. So We'll just stop doing that and reallocate the funds into our socialist society. And then America's funding our medicine to make it cheaper for our European citizens. And then you have these cocky Europeans that don't understand anything about how the world works. And they've been, by the way, brainwashed by their you think our you think our you think our institutionalized education is liberal here? The European education is an embarrassment. It's full of anti-America propaganda, super liberalism. And so these Europeans emerge out of the education system there. And then they have the nerve to be all cocky online and tell us what we're doing wrong. It's like, bitch, I don't want to hear from you. You only exist because of America. If Trump's going to completely drop the ball like it appears it's starting to, then it doesn't matter because it's the second term and he's not worried about trying to win anybody over after he's out. I'll tell you this right now. When it comes to Trump, I have a theory on Trump and what's going on with this administration, why he's dropping the ball the way that he is. And it actually has to do with something that I heard Eric Trump say in an interview. Eric Trump was talking about how Trump was, during the Biden regime, was being ruthlessly prosecuted with the vicious lawfare we saw from the Joe Biden regime against him. And he said at one point he was in a car with Donald, his dad, and he said Trump just looked at him and said, son, I don't know how, but I'm going to get us out of this. And when I heard that story originally, I was like, oh, I feel for the family for what they had to go through from Biden and his disgusting weaponized DOJ against not only Trump, but many Americans as well. Many conservatives and Christians were targeted by Biden. So I feel for him, and at the time especially. But now I look at it and I do wonder, because, there's the pardoning power that's going to come with the presidency. And Biden even set the trend of this, where he preemptively pardoned a bunch of people before leaving. And so I wonder if in the back of his mind, Trump doesn't just go, well, even if what I'm doing isn't popular, I'm not worried about Democrat retribution because I'll just pardon myself and everybody close to me, which he most assuredly will do. And so with that being the main incentive, it does make me wonder sometimes, right? Like Trump is stirring up this hornet's nest of the Democrat Party. He taunts them religiously online. He angers them more, spites them more, encourages them to become more radical. Then he has a DOJ that is toothless and won't do anything about it. No deep state arrests, no justice in this country. Cost of living still sucks for the lower class Americans and lower middle class Americans, right? It's only good if you're an old boomer or, like you own a corporation of some sort right now. And maybe that'll change. But what Trump is doing is he's stirring up. I view the liberal party as a hornet's nest. And it's like, we're in the position right now where we could just spray the raid on the hornet's nest and annihilate it. We could destroy liberal ideology. And all it would take would be for Trump to succeed with this administration, to make the cost of living undeniably amazing, to provide Americans with a better life, to continue on with mass deportations, to eliminate the H-1B visa program, right? To stop allowing Chinese students into this country, to return America to a free market society, to strengthen capitalism, fix our infrastructure more, all that jazz. And he's not really succeeding in any of that. But if he did, that would destroy liberals forever, or at least for the next 20, 30 years, very likely. But instead, we're getting abysmal failures time after time with this Trump administration. We're getting Trump chickening out halfway through the process on almost everything he promised. The Epstein disaster. And so he's really pissing off everybody. And who that's going to hurt the most in the future is going to be Republicans. Because Trump will be spared from Democrat retaliation. He'll pardon himself. He'll pardon those closest to him. He'll leave. It'll only be a halfway accomplishment at best. And Democrats will seek retribution the way we want Trump to get it for us. Democrats will seek it, and Democrats will get it. And they'll take it out on a lot of Republicans. And so the end result very likely could be, 5-10 years from now, Republicans cursing out Trump for doing what he's doing right now. And that's what I go back to on that. I go back to that Eric Trump interview where he said that's what his dad was focused on Donald Trump, his dad being Donald Trump, that's what his dad was focused on during the Biden regime, which of course makes sense. It's self-preservation. But, you know, we're really in a point right now, and we were especially last year, where there's this golden ticket that's been handed to Republicans, and you would assume they'd cash that in and secure America's future for the next 20 years, but instead they've ripped it up and they flushed it down the toilet, it seems. Keystone Liberty says John Fetterman has 3 candidates in Pennsylvania to challenge him for the Pennsylvania Democrat U.S. Senate. Yeah, and you know what's frustrating about that, Keystone? Is the Republicans, they like John Fetterman because he's a Democrat that can be negotiated with. And of course, Republicans do like that, but this is how sad the Republicans are. They lose sight. They can't see the forest through the trees. And so they look at Fetterman and they go, well, what more could you ask for than a reasonable Democrat? Gee, I don't know, a good hardcore conservative, perhaps? How come the Democrats or Republicans, how come they celebrate John Fetterman and they don't bring more national attention to the Republican candidates in Pennsylvania? How come Fox News is more eager to show somebody like a John Fetterman rather than a James Fishback in Florida? James Fishback, of course, representing, in my opinion, the best case version of a 31-year-old man deciding to step up in his community and in his state and run for Republican. But Fox News, you'll never see James Fishback on Fox News. You will see plenty of John Fetterman, though. The Republicans, they just love that. They love the moderates. They love the independents, and it makes absolutely no sense. But they've sacrificed their base in exchange for appealing to independents who might only vote for them, maybe vote for them, not guaranteed. It's so stupid. It's a huge tactical error. Economic populism wins every time, and they're not succeeding with that. Oh, you're really, hang on. Chanel Wiz 617 is very desperate for this message to get out. I don't mind being called a retard. YouTube cares more than I do, but you know, YouTube is a liberally run platform, so they love censorship. And so these messages are being automatically hidden. If it were up to me, they wouldn't be. It makes sense. It makes sense if you're not retarded. Or maybe you're defending me, Chanel, I don't know. But either way. Then don't read them. No one put it under your head, Mr. Stormtrooper. What are you talking about? I cry, yes, but not about politics. I don't vote. You have 2 choices, and they're both cults. You're not enlightened for that stance, Horse Major. You're really not. The enlightened stance that I want to present to you and everybody else in this chat, to summarize this, is you should be voting, but you should only be voting for candidates who will actually represent you. And most candidates, in fact, will not do that. That's for sure. But the fact of the matter is, that's the problem in this country right now. It's not the way our political system is set up. I agree with a 2-party system. I think anything more is folly. You look at Canada, for instance, with five parties sometimes, and you realize that when you have 5 parties, only 27% of the vote is usually what's needed to win an election, and that pretty much just guarantees that 73% of Canadians are at least somewhat unhappy then at that point. And then they call an election up there a year later, and they continually switch through it the way a losing football team switches through head coaches every 2 years. It's terrible. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with the way it's set up, but what's wrong is our politicians. They're bought out by, like I said, big money, and what we need more of is for good, morally upright, hardcore, conservative Christian men to rise up in this country and run for offices. Start at your local level. You know, part of the problem in this country, for instance, is our education system. That could be fixed if we had more conservative Christian men running in our school board, running for our school boards, holding school board membership, determining what's going on in our local educations, fixing our school system. And that's what it's going to take. You have to run town council, school board, you know, like legislators at a town level, you know, mayor even. Any of those positions should be something that more and more Americans rise up and run for, because that's how we really change this country. It's not going to be crying in your car on a YouTube live stream. That's not what's going to change anything. They laugh at that. And that's not why I'm on here. I'm not on here to just cry in my car. I'm on here to put out the truth, and I'm on here to hopefully galvanize at least some people to do something about it, myself included. And there's a bunch of ways to go about doing that. If you don't want to hold office, find somebody who's good and support them. You know, get involved. You have to get involved. So many people want to So many people don't want anything to do with politics. Amongst the ones that do, they only want to listen to politics. They only want to hear complaints. They only want to hear about how bad it is. They only want to hear their side is winning or complaining about something. They want to be outraged, but then they also want to go back to playing their video games or watching their movies, their television, going to their day job, and not really ever doing anything to change it. And we can't keep doing that. It has to change. This country has to change. And if we want it to change for the better, the time is now for good people to rise up, which is why I like James Fishback so much. But we need a lot more people like him. Turbo Christ says, morality has been completely depleted and mainly because of the internet. Also, shame is not really detectable in a lot of people anymore. Morality has been depleted, not because of the internet. The internet is a mirror. The internet hasn't caused morality to be depleted. The internet is a mirror. It's what holds it. It holds the mirror up to society, and it shows us who we really are. Morality has been depleted because of liberalism and feminism. You have liberalism that is, and it started with the hippie era and the boomers a lot. They ushered this era in of liberalism and feminism, and these two ideologies have coincided together to disrupt and ruin our society as we knew it. You have liberalism that says you're an individual. You're an individual and you have tons of rights and you're this and this and that. Then feminism comes in, and feminism says, don't you dare judge people. Don't you dare tell a woman that she's wrong. Don't you dare tell a woman no. Women are the Holy Spirit of the church. They'll tell you what's right and wrong. Don't you dare say this or that. And when you combine those two, you get the crazy white liberal woman Karen. That's the ultimate final form of what we're seeing. And that's why people rag on it so much. It's because they look at a Karen who's a white liberal, divorced woman, 3-time divorced woman, short hair, loud mouth, telling men what to do, what they can and can't say, putting up a fuss in public, calling people bigots. Last time she was in church, she was 5 years old. That's the final form of it. And that's what really destroyed our society. And those two ideologies have to be destroyed. And that's how we gain our society back. I think he's making the point in general, Christianity makes stronger. It does. But Christianity in the West has become a bastardized version of what it should be. And that's, again, because feminism infiltrated the church. And so now you're seeing in most typical watered-down Protestant churches, for instance, the divorce rate is almost as bad as the secular divorce rate. And so families they're not faring as good as they should be under the Christian sect as they should be. You get into the hardcore Christian sects like Orthodoxy, and then you see that the divorce rate is in single digits. It's at 9% for Orthodox Christians. I'm not Orthodox. I am Protestant. But I look at that and I go, that's because it's rigid and it didn't allow women and feminism to infiltrate the church. So feminism's a big problem, truly. And same with liberalism. Those are the two issues. It's pretty cut and dry, actually. Feminism is the weapon of liberalism. Yes, William Robertson. Do you think conservatism is the only way to go for the United States, says Navy pilot? No, it's not the only way for the United States to go, but it's the only way that it can go if we want to preserve the United States. The alternative is liberalism, feminism, coinciding together to destroy what's left of society and ultimately replace Americans with foreign invaders, which is what we saw under the Biden administration. And that's just such an outright agenda, It's not even like colleges like Harvard try to hide it. Harvard has I believe it's Harvard. Could be wrong on that. But I remember some college institute publishing an article in the early 2000s saying white people are becoming the minority, and that's not a bad thing. Like, they don't hide this, And it's not even about white people in general. America's for Americans, but Americans, what I define an American as is someone who was born here legally to parents who either immigrated here legally and have citizenship, or to parents who were born here legally, right? And so the agenda of the Liberal Party is to replace Americans, and then you have feminism backing that up as the weapon in the form of suicidal, empathetic women. They have suicidal empathy, it's called. And these women will go out there and they'll say, we owe it to the immigrants to allow them into this country to replace us. Because after all, 250 years ago, we stole this land. We conquered it. We settled it. You know, America is so great because of Americans. Nevertheless, that's the weapon. It is the white woman, the idiotic white woman full of suicidal empathy, who basically walks around apologizing for being white and or American, and apologizes for living in the best nation in the world, and wants to make amends for that by allowing this country to be destroyed. And of course, you have the soy boy, puss boy liberal men that will do anything to be able to eat that white liberal woman's box. Not even get actual, not even to get actual sex. They don't even, it's not even about that. They just want the attention. They want to believe that if they capitulate and if they simp for these women and just pretend to be okay with this, that these women will let them hit it. And so you have idiotic liberal soy boy men that agree with it too. And there's nothing more pathetic than that, Like the women are just a product of the society that we're in, which is just a bunch of weak men. But women always surrender to the agenda that men are enforcing. The problem is men have been enforcing the agenda of replacing Americans and of destroying traditionalism and embracing feminism and liberalism. So now the women are all, they're all on board with it. But at the end of the day, it's the women that are getting pregnant without being married. They're getting pregnant without having a man to support them. Who do they go to? Daddy government. So then they surrender to the government. They submit to the government. That's what women do. It's all about the framing. And right now, men have been taught to not hold any sort of frame over anything. That has to change. It will change too. Gen Z men are becoming increasingly more conservative. And the divide amongst Gen Z is the biggest divide politically out of any generation. The women are far more liberal, but the men are far more conservative. The divide is massive, and it's only growing. So there's a lot of hope on the horizon. True Statements says Ted Haluska 9963. Thank you, appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe to American Advocates if you haven't already, and like the stream too if you're enjoying what I'm saying. Oh my gosh, you just went off the deep end, dude. Okay, man. Sorry you can't comprehend anything deeper than, regular news and headlines. This is not the right channel for you. You should probably go back to Brian Krasenstein or David Pakman or any one of those other, morons. I'm not a religious person. I'm a follower of Yeshua. I believe you, brother. I'm Gen X. Nice, man. Yeah, Gen X is kind of cool. They're not boomers, that's for sure. And even on an individual basis, I stated this before, I don't hate boomers individually. I know a lot of cool boomers. It's just their generation that I have a problem with. What happened under their generational watch is what bothers me. This dude is not wrong on that, says Horse Major. Well, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. I feel like there's been a little back and forth this stream with you, Horse Major, but I don't think we're agreeing on everything. But I can appreciate discourse. I can appreciate open discourse. Host, if you don't already watch the Lotus Eaters, you'd love their stuff. English-based, but talks about globally pertinent stuff. I'll check them out. Thank you. Thank you, the Stormtrooper. Nice. You'll see in the midterms. Well, that was the whole point of this stream. The midterms are going to be rough for conservatives. Gen X is uncool, says Joe Ruth. I don't know about that. Mark Mitchell is a Gen Xer. He runs Rasmussen Reports, and I've talked with him in DMs and chatted with him and interacted with him in his comments. He's a cool guy. There's cool Gen Xers. They really developed a lot of the technology we're using now. Don't forget that. So they're not all bad. They're not all bad. The younger you get in generations, the cooler they are. But it's kind of always worked that way, Believe it or not, at one point in time, Gen Xers were considered the coolest, They were doing the MTV, the MTV Unplugged series, All of your favorite musicians were probably Gen Xers. If you like grunge music like I do, you look at somebody like Elaine Staley or what's his name, Kurt Cobain. Those would have all been Gen Xers. They just tragically died too soon. So Gen Xers did a lot of cool stuff, Believe it or not, at one point, boomers would have been considered cool. I don't know how, but it's just kind of how it goes. And I'm on the youngest end of the millennial spectrum. I'm right at the line before Gen Z. But I'll freely admit, I think Gen Z's cooler than I am. It's just how it goes. About 10 years ago, I used to be the coolest. My generation was the coolest. Now Gen Zers are becoming the coolest, They use all the new terms like jester maxing and cap and all that jazz. I know what they mean, but I don't use them nearly as much as they do. I chuckle when I hear them use it though. It's funny, it's cool, and it's just how it goes. It's just what it is. Yuck, Gen X, more like Gen Dummies. Ah, come on, be nice. I mean, you don't have to be nice, not on this stream. I like when people are rude and real, but still. As an Xer, boomers were never cool, says Ryan Goosling. I actually am more inclined to believe that, but I'm assuming the way that it works was at some point boomers were cool, right? Boomers grew up in that hippie era, and the hippies were kind of... The hippies to the boomers and the disco to the boomers was kind of like what the grunge was to the Xers. The grunge, of course, was received well with me being a millennial. I know even a lot of Gen Zers, they fuck with Alice in Chains nowadays and stuff, but everybody has those movements, Yeah, the millennials are the worst, I'm sorry. I mean, there's every generation has things that sucks about it, too. I'll agree with that. I cringe at a lot of millennials shit, trust me. Gen X is the forgotten generation. They kind of remind me of that. Like they've been overlooked, because millennials really brought a lot of attention to themselves when they entered the workforce. It wasn't the Gen Zers that started all of this. It was the millennials. Just the millennials didn't go as hard. Gen Z goes the hardest, and I love that. But millennials were the first ones to hit the workforce, and we looked at it. Because I was part of this. I was told by my boomer father, for instance, like, you can't just keep quitting your job every 3 months because you hate it. It's going to look bad on your resume. And I remember just thinking, I don't give a fuck. I hate this place. I'm leaving, And so millennials kind of started a lot of that shit where we looked at how the boomers and Xers were living, where it was like, oh, yeah, you go work for a place for 10 to 20 years before you even think about quitting, or hopefully you can just retire there and you only have one job. And it's just like, that wasn't going to ever be a reality for millennials. It's certainly, Gen Zers can't even find a job, and it's not even their fault, right? They're being replaced by immigrants and AI. But it was never going to be that reality. There's like the real divide, truthfully, in a lot of ways societally is you have boomers and Xers, and then there's the line, and then you have millennials and Gen Z. And then in between those, you have various different divides. But that's the real divide, because the Xers are the last generation that really got to live because of when they were born. They got to live in decent times. Millennials were sold on the idea that those times would be just as decent, but by the time we got to life, everything was going downhill. And then sadly, and why I love Gen Z the most, and why I promised I'd never rag on Gen Z the way boomers ragged on me, is because Gen Z was just born. Gen Z is like Bane from Dark Knight. Like, they're born in the darkness. In all honesty, like they don't know any. It's sad. They just don't know any. They were too little to even remember what America was like at all. And I think that's really sad. And I think they deserve to be able to grow up and see times shift back to that. And I hope it does. And I believe that America can change back. And I believe America can get better. And I want that for Gen Z, and I want that for Gen Alpha after Gen Z, So, but that's really where we're at with that, like and you can see it in the percentages that I covered on my other streams. Like, by the time boomers were 36, almost 65% of them owned homes. Millennials are barely pressing 55%. So millennials are way behind on the schedule of owning homes. And the 55% of millennials is overrepresented by millennials who are in their 40s, who are owning homes for the first time years after boomers were able to own homes, when boomers were hitting their 30s. And then on top of that, it's like Gen Z, it's only 27.5% of Gen Z own homes. So the drop-off between millennials and Gen Z is even greater. Of course, the oldest Gen Zers right now are 28 or 29. So they're still just getting started, and there's no reason for them to all own homes yet. They should mostly stay in their renting phase of life. But, then you look at rent, it's sky high. My boomer parents rented an entire half of a 2-story duplex for $450 a month, all utilities included. Like, that's dream level rent. Like, when I was renting, my rent was climbing up during COVID. My rent was going up every 3 months, and it wound up hitting thousands of dollars. It was insanity. And so, it's just different. It's just very different for the generations. We could play outside until the lights come on, says William Robertson. Yeah, it was kind of like that for me as well. Kind of. Less so though, but kind of. The loss of the American arcades with pinball machines killed. Yeah, America's youth because of home video games. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's what killed it. Killed it. Like you can still drive by. Like there's a doomer pill where I'm inclined to agree with you, Huey, and I will say that. But when like in peak summer, I'll drive by and I'll see kids playing on the basketball court still and whatnot. But I do wish there were more arcades. Like I used to go to the arcade and there was this cool ass Jurassic Park Lost World game where you were in the back of a Jeep and you had like this like machine gun and there was like the Carnotaur that would chase you and it was like it had chameleon abilities and it would like blend in. It was just so fun. And then you go on to play like the Wheel of Fortune game. I'd win so big on that. Skee ball was awesome. Go play some putt, you know. So yeah, the times have changed. It's like that for every generation, to be fair though, because I always heard that from my boomer parents, and they would tell me that too. They're like, it used to be a lot different. So unfortunately, that there's like a nostalgic element that kicks in there, where it's like every generation winds up feeling in some way that times have changed for the worse, and it's probably true. MAGA stream. I'm not MAGA. I'm conservative. I'm not MAGA though. A money bag. But the stream. I'm wrapping up the stream. I'm just kind of chatting at this point. I'm not really. I already made all my main points. The music was great, says William Robertson. Yeah. They sold my local bowling alley to a fucking national brand, and they had an arcade. They made it so much more expensive and worse. Yeah. Something people aren't mentioning, says Turbo Christ, is the American birth rate has actually gone into the negative for the first time right around 2020. People aren't having families anymore. There's a whole host of reasons for that. Actually, illegal immigration is tied into that stat, by the way. It at least correlates with it, which is what we've seen when you look up the graphs. The illegal immigrants come here and they actually take over and they have better birth rates. And then over time, their birth rate plummets here as well. Then you have the cost of living crisis, the affordability issues, the housing market, etc. Like that really is what plays a large part here. And again, where does a lot of our money go senselessly? Overseas, to places it doesn't belong. So, it is sad, but that's true, and that is a part of the problem with our society for sure. Conservative, not MAGA, is actually respectable. Dude is too smart to call himself MAGA, which I respect. Cole Ferguson. Yeah, no worries. No worries, definitely. I mean, if this was a year ago, I would have told you, yeah, I was MAGA, I voted Trump and everything, but, because I agree with what Trump campaigned on, but the fact of the matter is Trump's not really living up to those promises. So, but I'm very socially conservative and fiscally conservative. It's just, this is not the conservative. This is not what I want. We need, according to my perspective, we're not getting enough conservative values here. Trump is a 90s Democrat, really. If you really look at what he's doing, he's a 90s Democrat. We pioneered motocross, BMX, wakeboarding, and kite surfing. You're talking Gen X? That sounds like a Gen X thing to say. And it's, well, BMX, yeah. I mean, I was playing video games as a millennial that was all about that stuff. ATV Off-Road Fury 2. Good music, great game. We created hot dogs and else. Yeah, nice. Nobody complains about those. Boom. Hot dogs, I would argue, are part of American culture, actually. Give me some good hot dogs on a 4th of July party with some fireworks and some good old American rock music playing. Hell yeah. I can respect that. That's definitely a solid take, says Stormtrooper. Appreciate you, man. Yeah. Trump is not fiscally conservative. He kind of, sometimes he is, but yeah. He's a 90s Democrat. That's what I always call him. Gen Y and millennials have lost the plot. We had all the advantages of earlier generations, but have raised our kids like fragile weenies, says Ron Goldberger. Are you talking about how millennials have raised kids, or are you talking about how millennials were raised? Because I look at millennials, I look at Gen Z especially, and I think they're savages. I think they're based savages, and I think they have the correct perspective on stuff. And I think that that's what actually offends the boomers, is that we don't tolerate the shit that they thought they had to. 100% part of American culture. Amen. America, hot dogs and NASCAR. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, Huey. I'm unemployed since October in IT. Wife got fired from public health last week. I'm 38. I've been doing IT for decades, and now AI is coming for me. I know, yeah. I wanted to have kids next year, but it's not happening, says Life Stereotype 7320. Yeah, and that's the multifold problem that I covered last stream. Trump didn't harden on his stance on H-1B visas. He softened on it. And so now we have the Indians coming in from India, taking your jobs in IT, in STEM. In some cases, they're making the AI that's going to replace you. and they've replaced you. So you were making the AI, or you were in IT. Now AI can replace you if you were a phone operator, or worse. And some of the worst cases I've heard, Americans are being asked to train the Indian immigrant that comes here on an H-1B on how to do the job. Trump's on TV telling us the Indians are smarter than us, but in most cases I hear Americans saying, well, I had to train the Indian, and then once I did, I was let go, and he was hired in my place at about 25% of the wage I was being paid. Bottom line. That's the sad thing. That's the sad reality of it. Just trust the plan, man. No way. We're beyond that. Gen Z is officially split almost 1-to-1, and everyone is a radical. Yeah, they are a bit radical, but that's because what choice do they have? The times are bad. The worse it gets, the more radical it has to be, unfortunately. The average IQ in India is in the mid-70s, says Stormtrooper. Yeah, I don't doubt it. But then you have our president on there telling us that they're smarter than us and they have to come here to teach us how to do the job. It's so bullshit. AI could be the beast system or our savior. It should be neither. That's how I view it, William Robertson. It shouldn't be either of those things, but we need to regulate it. And that's another problem I have with the Trump admin. He's not regulating shit. Young men understand this. Young men understand this. James Fishback in Florida is running on not replacing people with data centers. Data centers, of course, will power AI. Data centers, of course, will consume electricity at such a magnitude that it'll affect the way we do things because of all the water need. You need moving water and all that jazz for electricity. It's a whole series of problems. James Fishback is 31 years old, though. He knows and understands AI better than a 79-year-old boomer in politics does. But like we understand it, and nobody fully understands AI, which is the scary thing. But the younger you are, the more you understand it, and the more you understand it because we feel the effects of it. We understand the concept of having to apply online to 250 jobs just to get one fucking job interview, because all of these corporations use AI to filter our online applications, and they all get tossed out for making a slight mistake. And no, there is no applying in person anymore, largely. Maybe at a local business, but if you're trying to apply to a Walmart or a Target in person, good luck. You go all the way there and they say apply online. You apply online, you don't fill out your application 110% perfectly, and the AI filter that these corporations use just scrubs it, throws it right in the trash. You don't even get an email to notify you that your application was disqualified. But old people don't understand that. They're locked in. They're done. Many of them are retiring. Their 401ks have been in the stock for years now. They get their Social Security. Their home equity is worth $500,000. They're set. So they don't get it. That's why we need more young people in politics, people who are going to understand. And AI is a huge potential threat to us domestically. But the time is now to regulate it. And the unfortunate thing is that's not happening. Instead, we're getting shit like Palantir. If you don't know what Palantir is, look into it. It should frighten you. Doesn't Terminator come into play? Yeah, that's actually the thing. I can't believe we're living to see such times. But yeah, it's like we're going to be in a time where we see Terminators. We're going to see fucking super battle droids from Star Wars. Like, that's actually like a possible reality now. It's crazy, It's going to be wild. That's the trick, yes. I'll say that out loud for anybody who needs to hear it too, Billy Hall. Run your application through AI before you submit it. That's true. Also, many Gen Zers have discovered that a lot of the AI filters for more of the woke corporations are set up to hire more minorities or women. So a lot of Gen Z men have been doing this hilarious trend where they apply as a black woman and then they show up to the interview as a white man. And it works. They get the interview. So there's always that too. I think they're using some of the AI so they can have entities or energies inhabit them. Yeah. No career politicians is a must go. Yeah, I go after 2 terms. I agree with that too. Can't tell if a video is real anymore, William Robertson. I mean, I'm a young millennial, and even once in a while, even I get fooled. And the older you get, the easier it is to fool. Not a knock on Xers or boomers, but especially with boomers. Like, it's always the boomers that are like, hey, did you see that video of the polar bear dancing with the penguins in the Arctic? And it's just like, first of all, penguins don't live in the northern part of the world, and on top of that, a polar bear wouldn't dance with them. That's AI. So, not a knock on boomers. It's just how it goes. In 40 years, I'll be in that stage probably. Who knows what the world will look like then? But I'm sure something will be fooling my old eyes then too. But for now, I'm not fooled by most of it. But I'll admit freely, I've been fooled like once or twice. It's at a point now where, like 3 years ago, I used to be scrolling on my social media timelines, and instantly I could tell if it was AI. Now I have to stop and look at it for a second, which I hate because then I give the thing the post watch time, which helps promote it more in the algorithm. But I'll have to watch it for like 1 to 3 seconds, and I'll be like, oh, that's AI, and then I scroll or I block the channel or whatever. But that is true. That is happening. Alex Jones would be proud, says I hope so. I hope Alex Jones is proud. I hope Unc is proud of me. Uncle Alex Jones. I hope he's proud. This guy is still crying. I am not crying anymore, Gary the Snail. I'm just chilling. So they still hiring or a waste of time, says Horse Major. I don't know what you're talking about, but most places pretend to be hiring and they're really not. Ding dong on the AI applications. I haven't gotten any calls in weeks because of these, says Life Stereotype 7320. Yep. I am applying for entry-level roles with even with no response. Yeah, there's a whole host of issues too. Some of it is straight up data phishing, by the way. So they're fake applications. They just want your data, then they sell it, which is ridiculous. So some of them are a scam, and that's the risk you run with having to apply to 250 places to get one job interview. Is now you've set yourself up with 25 of those are scams. They're data phishing centers. They're not even real job applications. Now your information's out there and you're getting spam texts all the time, which are so fucking annoying. And then on top of it, yes, you're applying to all these places. You don't even know if your application got filtered out by the AI. It's a disgrace. And you go in person, and if it's not a local restaurant, which I do recommend people apply to, if you really want to go in person and shake a hand and get a job, apply to a local restaurant. Chances are that's where that will work. But not everyone could do that. A lot of people are going to have to go to the Walmarts, the Targets, the Costcos, the Publixes. If you're trying for entry-level jobs, that's just where you start. And so, the McDonald's, whatever. No shame in that, especially if you're just starting out, right? Or if you're down bad and you need a job. You need a job. You do what you got to do. But the fact that it's all AI now, it's all AI filtered and only apply online, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. William Robertson says, I got lucky. I'm going to be okay. I was injured, and that's what happened. And luckily, the state actually helped me out, and I want to help America and the world with peace and prosperity and happiness. Hey, I echo some of that, man. That's why this channel exists. I don't know what this will turn into over time, but that's, I'm sort of in the same spot. I'm actually kind of in the same spot a lot. I was actually injured a couple years ago as well, and it forced my entire world perspective to change. And now I own a business that's going to be very successful because it's a time-tested, proven method of business. And when I'm wealthy in the next 10 to 15 years, I want to use my wealth to help people too. So boomers are dropping like flies now. They're starting to. Over the next 10 years, you're really going to see that happen, yeah. And that'll, of course, change our politics too, as they're already only at a slim majority in our politics, I believe. Gen Xers are taking majority, and then soon millennials and Gen Z will. Our politics are going to change drastically over the next 10 to 20 years. I believe that you should see your employer. Yeah, I agree, especially to apply. Gen X isn't any better. They're not really that much better, no. There's a few good Gen Xers, but, it will turn into nothing. I'm your hater, says Horse Major. Okay. You're a halfway hater, so that's fair. We will be running short on boomers soon. We will be. Turbo, that's literally the least important effect of this development. What did Turbo say? The AI we have access to is extremely convincing now, so that means Hollywood has no excuse to make shitty-looking movies anymore. Yeah. Yeah. The entertainment's kind of a reflection of the times too, though, and I do view that as a problem. Like our creativity being at an all-time low, it seems. It's like, well, when things suck, creativity's low. People aren't inspired to create anymore, and that's kind of the sad thing too. One of the things I'll wholeheartedly accept in my generation is what they call millennial gray, and I just saw this at my local Burger King. The colorful blue roof. I drive by it all the time. It's at the corner where I live. it used to be the blue roof and the golden burger logo and all the colors, the blue, the white, the red. All of a sudden it shuts down for 2 months. It's being remodeled. I drive by it again. It's gray and beige and it's just soulless, and they call it millennial gray. And I think the reason why they call it that is because we grew up in the Middle East war after the 9/11. I remember the 9/11 attack. I was a little kid. I got off the bus from school, and Mom was watching the TV. I've never seen my mom look so frightened. And she was watching the TV while she was vacuuming the living room, and the 9/11 stuff was on. And that changed America, I think, deeply so, in a bad way. And you could see the effect of that over the last 25 years. It's like, it's changed stuff. Things are less bright, less colorful. There's less passion and soul, less creativity. All the movies that come out now are just a copy of the old movies that were good from the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. So that plays a part too. That's just like the internet, I said, is a mirror. It's a mirror on society. It shows you what people have always been. Entertainment is a reflection of society as well. And so is our architecture, like the Burger King at the corner of my street. It looks, I hate it. It's so depressing. Bring back the colors. 34%. Where did you get the statistic? I can't remember the article. I'm sorry. I've been streaming for almost 2 hours now, but I read the article before I went live. Type it in on Google. It's definitely a left slanted. It's a left leaning slanted poll, but it does have them at 34% approval. It has mostly to do with cost of living. The gray is actually because it makes it easier to sell the building. I know that, but I understand that. It's hard. It is hard to sell an old Burger King or McDonald's building. Like you're trying to sell another business a building, and it's like got a red roof with the golden arches of McDonald's French fries. I do understand that, but I don't care. I don't care how practical it is. I want colors and good architecture. You look at some of that good old school Italian architecture, or you look at some of that good old school architecture overseas in Italy or Europe, or you look at some of those churches over there. It's like that's the stuff that people remember. Chipotle gray, yeah, that's a good term for it. I call it the millennial gray, which is kind of what it is. That's the fair term, but Chipotle gray, because Chipotle really is when I think about it, you're on to something with that. It was when Chipotle started coming around that modern look was introduced, and for some reason everybody thought, oh, this is so classy. I just love sitting in a black and gray and beige building with giant windows and stools in them with no back support. Not a chair, a stool with no back support on a solid white marble table that's really high up. And I love eating my Chipotle slop. Chipotle's overrated. It's not bad. I've eaten it several times throughout my life, but it's overrated. Everything about it is overrated. Yeah, the old Pizza Hut Stormtrooper. Yeah, Stormtrooper. I don't know what generation you're a part of, but as a millennial, I can remember how cool Pizza Hut was. The buffet, the look, the red roof, the Pizza Hut, the cool plastic cups that the kiddie cups and stuff. The buffet was epic. It was there were 2 different days that they did it while I was growing up. It was Tuesdays, and then at one point it was Wednesdays. But yeah, sitting in the Pizza Hut with the cool colored carpets, the black carpet with the colored squiggles on them and stuff. It was like, that's the stuff. That's what makes you feel alive and happy. It's all been changed. Pizza Huts now, most Pizza Huts that you drive by are like the tiniest square footage you'll ever see. There's no way, you don't even get to sit in them anymore. It's all carry out. We can't give Americans chairs. We're already fat as fuck. Yeah, standing desks. Chipotle should pave the way on that and just force their customers to stand at their already way too high off the ground white marble tables to eat. So you can stand for once in your life, you fat bitch. Stand the fuck up and shove that burrito in your face. I'm a Z, but I'm told I have a soul older than Jesus, says Stormtrooper. Well, the thing is, there's like this weird thing with the Gen Z that I noticed where they despite the fact that they hate boomers, and in a lot of ways rightfully so, like Gen Zers are the ones that I notice walking around looking like how my boomer dad used to look when I was like 8 years old. Like they brought back the knee-high gym socks. They brought back just the mustache. You know, they brought back wearing like the plain white like sweaty armpit t-shirts. Like they brought back the hair stuff. They kind of have their own hair. They're called the broccoli heads, right? But they brought back like just the mustache. They brought back the white socks that go up to your knees and like the sandals. And it's just like that's for the most part that's like how my boomer dad was when he was in his late 30s and I was a kid, you know? So it's kind of funny. It is kind of funny. A lot of Gen Zers do have somewhat of an old soul. I think it's because they're longing for. The Gen Zers hate the boomers because of what the boomer generation as a whole allowed America to down spiral into. But I think Gen Zers, even millennials too, for the most part, look back on the time era that the boomers were living in, and we want that. That's the America we want. You can go back and watch the videos, and it's like, you know, they were living so good. It was like you went on a date with a big busty blonde broad and she was gorgeous and she dressed feminine. Her makeup was on point. She was in great shape. She was fun and feminine and flirty and lighthearted and easy to get along with. And you took her out to you took her out to an ice cream place in your Mustang convertible, and you had the time of your life in the summertime, and everything was vibrant and colorful. And you went for ice cream, and you had a great time, and, you know, life was simple. You know, you were like, that girl you went on a date with, you did that a couple of times, and then you decided, I'm going to propose to her. I'm going to buy an engagement ring. I'm going to propose, and then I'm going to get a job and save up, and I'm going to get a slightly better job and save up to buy a house in 3 years. Because it's 1981 and I can buy a house for 18 grand. And that's what the young generations long for, and rightfully so. And so that's why you have an old soul stormtrooper. It's because I think you're just self-aware enough to realize how fucked America is and you want the times to return. I could be wrong. Maybe it's for a different reason, but who said a white shirt is gay? Matthew Tolaxo says a closeted gay look. What, the mustache and the shirt and the socks? I don't know. I wouldn't say that. It's more like a not try hard masculine look, in all honesty. That's my opinion. It's kind of just like the chill like weekend. Like that's how my dad used to. My dad always dressed very well. My dad was a very top level salesman in the city I grew up in. So he did very good. And he was always dressed professional. But that was like, it's called the Saturday dad look, you know? That's what I would call it. That's the Saturday dad look, you know? My dad used to wake up at 5 a.m. On Saturday. He'd allow himself to sleep in till 7:30, you know? And then at 8 a.m. sharp, I'm trying to sleep in even longer. The lawnmower starts. Like, oh, fuck. I wake up. My dad's outside. He's wearing knee-high white socks, like gym socks, and he's wearing, like, baggy beige cargo shorts, and he's wearing some like regular ass $3 Walmart white t-shirt, and he's got just a mustache, and he's mowing the lawn at 8 a.m. And so are like 5 of the other dads in the neighborhood, you know, and they're all saying hi to each other and complimenting each other's lawns, and then they go inside and they watch, you know, TV or something, you know. Like if they get done in time, they watch a couple cartoons with you or something, and you eat cereal together. And then your dad's like spending all day running errands, going to like Home Depot. And that's just how he looks all day. He's just wearing cargo shorts, a white shirt, you know. That's just how it is. He's rocking just a stash. That's a boomer dad. If you grew up with a boomer dad, chances are that's what it was like growing up with him. That's what it was like for me. And that's what Gen Z's like emulating sometimes. And I think it's kind of funny. I think it's kind of cool. They do it in like a semi-ironic way, I think, but it's like cool. It's actually kind of cool to see that back. Dude, I had a pager, says, for Google's sake. Yeah, my dad had a pager too, and I remember my dad getting a company laptop in 1998 or 1999, and I played this cool ass game on his laptop called Chips Challenge. And it's like this, I think it's a German game or something, or Scandinavian or something. Crazy ass game. And you can play it on your cell phone nowadays too. But it was called Chips Challenge. And then there was this like skiing game on his laptop I used to be addicted to as well, where an abominable snowman would chase you if you went on a streak long enough without crashing. It was so wild. I'd bounce back between those two and like solitaire, you know? And I was like literally like a little kid. But my dad had that, and then he had a cell phone, I remember, and it was like a 3 flipper cell phone with an antenna, you know? Cool times. Yeah, I think it's too far gone. Oh, don't say that, man. I don't believe that. I genuinely do not believe that. Video killed the radio star. It did. Something AI will kill stuff. That's inevitable. But if we can get a hold of AI and regulate it properly, which is a far fetched, unfortunately. But I don't believe it's too far gone, man. We just need more common sense, good people running for office. You're a conservative, right? You're a tree voting for the axe. Okay, I'm not gonna. I'm more on a roll nostalgic here, wise now. A chat like that I'd address earlier on. Your dad seems cool, says Horse Major. My dad was pretty cool. He had a cool toy car collection from the '60s when he was a kid. Passed that on to me. I collected a lot of Hot Wheels and Matchbox when I was a kid. Very into Star Wars. Got to go see Attack of the Clones in the theaters with my dad. So yeah, my dad was pretty cool. He was in the Star Wars. And then in the 2010s were a good time even for Gen Zers because they got to grow up with a little bit of Star Wars and then a lot of Marvel. When Marvel was at its peak, and my dad, I was already moved out by the time Marvel was peaking. I was in my apartment, but I went to the theater with my mom and my dad to see a lot of those Marvel movies, and my dad was really excited. He's like, this is kind of like being able to live through Star Wars again. My generation was so excited about Star Wars. We thought it was the coolest thing ever. And he's like, and we're kind of getting to do that again. I was like, yeah, that's right. That's true. Me on my 4-mile walk today. Good for you, man. Walking's great for you. I'm back now that spring's here and stuff, and now that it's like warm. It's gonna be warm out soon. I'm back down into the cutting phase of the gym, so I'm gonna be doing a whole hell of a lot more walking. I always puff out in December and January. It's like, you start with Thanksgiving and you tell yourself you're gonna be disciplined, but then December comes and it's like Christmas stuff. And my mom's like a great baker. She used to bake professionally. She's like, oh, it's all this good stuff. And then January comes and you're like, all right, it's the new year, new me. Only it's not. You're still addicted to sugar, so you still stuff your face in January. And then in middle February, it starts warming up, and you're like, damn, okay, I gotta lose weight because I'm gonna have to be like wearing a t-shirt again and not a jacket. So I gotta cut some weight. Walking's great for you. A couple 15-minute walks every single day, and you'll be in good shape. Thought bro was going to say Oregon Trail for sure, man. I played Oregon Trail. I played Age of Empires. That's my shit. I love Age of Empires. That was my shit. I had the coolest. You want to talk about another boomer? My history teacher, same look. Well, he actually rocked a full beard for the most part. But he had the overgrown mustache still. And my cool ass history. Nope. We lost connection there for a second. My cool ass history teacher, he had Age of Empires and like 7 computers. And it was obviously before Wi-Fi was really a thing. I was in history class. Wi-Fi was a thing, but it wasn't great. So we had to do the old LAN connection. And he used to literally let us play Age of Empires sometimes as our history lessons or during study halls. Great times. Great times. To this day, I still play Age of Empires. Civ 5 was a great game as well, Stormtrooper, definitely. Yeah. I got into Civ. Civ 4 was like free on Xbox Live at one point, back when the 360 was aging out. It was before I bought the newest console, and so for Xbox 360, before I bought my PS4, I bought Civ 4, and I was like, this is a cool game. It's more turn-based. It's not real-time, if I remember right, but Civ 4 was really cool, and then I did get into Civ 5 because of it. AoE was great. AoE is still great. I still play AoE. And I play the Star Wars version as well, Galactic Battlegrounds. Great game. Basically Star Wars Age of Empires, like pretty much a carbon copy with a few added differences like spaceships and Jedi instead of monks. But great stuff. I had the Intellivision, says William Robertson. Hell yeah. They should teach history on video games. They kind of do, They kind of do. Not every teacher's cool enough to allow that though. But I had a cool history teacher in middle school that was big on it. He loved Age of Empires. You know what the problem is with the boomers, though? They're kind of cocked. Not to turn it into a rant, but it's because I'm thinking about my history teacher, and I reached out to him after all these years with some of my buddies that I graduated 8th grade from. And I said, hey, I reached out to him because I found him on Facebook, and I was like, hey, now that like Wi-Fi is a thing, we can still play Age of Empires, like we would love, there was like 4 of us, and we were like, we would love to play Age of Empires with you again. And his response was just such a boomer response. Like, come on, boomers, you gotta get control. His response was, oh man, he's like, it's just been so long. He's like, and I can only imagine what my wife's reaction would be if she walked in the room on me playing Age of Empires. I was like, oh, dude, no. I was so disappointed. Turned me down because he said his wife would be furious. It's like, come on, man. That's where millennials, well, especially Gen Z, we won't go wrong. Like, we're gonna make sure our women are a little bit more in line because, like, you can't be. Come on, man. Like, that would have been the coolest thing ever to play with him again after all these years. But he's like, nah, my wife won't let me. It's like, come on, that is so lame. That is so lame. I'm going to tell you right now, as a millennial, I have increasingly far less time to play video games. I own a business now, and I work a job, and I do this now, which is paying me. Not great yet, but I'm trying to get it up and running. So I'm just so busy. But I will always play video games in some capacity. And like, if I get married, like, my wife, she's just going to have to be okay with that. There's going to be no complaining. There's going to be no conveniently, you need to take the trash out now that you just sat down to play video games. It's going to be, I'm going to sit down when I want to play video games, and it's going to be a good 2 hour window of me just playing video games uninterrupted. And that's how it's going to be. There's going to be no negotiating on that. It's not going to be my wife. My wife says I can't play video games anymore, guys. No, no, no. That downloading with a modem took forever. Yeah, I know. I mean, I remember dial-up internet too, so. I got a PS5, but haven't played in a year now. Yeah, I just started, I played Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds this past week. I've been re-addicted to it, but before that, I almost went 2 years without playing a video game. You know, I've just been busy. It kind of sucks, but it's kind of cool too. You know, it's like for all the right reasons I'm busy, so I don't mind so much, but if she complains, I know you'll treat her like the terrorist she is, says Horse Major. That's right. That is correct. That is terrorist behavior. You don't wait for me to sit down and start playing video games to then go over a list of household chores you expect me to do. How about you take out the trash, you terrorist? I love it. Why can't women take out the trash? It's just garbage. You better go to the Philippines if you're going to get a wife like that. Yeah, you're probably right, Louie. Why are they hiding your guys' chats? I hate that. You're probably right. We'll see. I just want to marry, I just want to marry an American girl if I'm going to get married. I don't want to have to go overseas. I don't want to be a passport bro. I was good in Modern Warfare, says William Robertson. Yeah, MW2 was the golden era. I got to experience that too. That was great times. Oh, all right, that's gonna wrap it up, guys. This is the longest I've been live for ever on this channel. Be sure to like the stream, subscribe already if you haven't. We went off on a much needed nostalgic time lapse there, a nice little flashback. It was actually much needed because America sucks right now, and I hope we can get back to some sort of time like that in the future. Not even for my sake, but for the sake of the younger generations. And I'm not going to give up hope on that. Not going to give up hope on that. We can get this country back. You better become a passport bro. All that awaits you are feminists, says Horse Major. Enough time will undo that, but will that happen fast enough for millennials and Gen Zers is the question, and it's not looking good, is it? So, yeah, you might be right. Drop a sub for the man, y'all, says Stormtrooper. Yes, please, drop a sub, drop a like on the stream. If you left the chat you really wanted me to see and I didn't, because it's like the chats at some points come in so quick, and it's worth my time to read, please. I don't cast pearls to swine. So if you want to leave a comment on the video after the fact of a chat that I missed, feel free to do so. I'll reply to it. But yeah, thanks for everybody who tuned in. I appreciate all you guys. Glory to America and God bless the USA. God bless you. Have a good rest of your Sunday. I'll see you guys tomorrow. It probably won't be as fully lighthearted when the news cycle hits again. We'll see what happens. You never know. You never know. But have a great night, guys.